He goes again, it's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your
desk? Well, I won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years, we wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. As you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs, barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you So the question, would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. When it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. During the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people are
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
here. Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police.
Terrorists, they allowed common street criminals, they allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse
President
me,
Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in the documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and under in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is some because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized.
A lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing, taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to Having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago, her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear, Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right. You'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue. because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you, I'd love to have you, you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he asked, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. he said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes.
Out this microphone
14 million votes. What you did.
I just want to say that they are evil with their tactics tonight,
and they threw him out of office. And you
they
know what?
keep bringing up what happened at the Capitol and all of this evil stuff. Y'all know what's going on.
Him out. She got
what's good, everybody?
Votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the
what's good, everybody?
Welcome.
Who
are still being held.
I've decided from now on we're going live here on YouTube to make it easier for everyone.
Quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians.
All right, Spook, appreciate it, man.
You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate.
Y'all listen to this. What's up, Kelly?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
Why we got to rebuild
President
it?
Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years.
That's true.
Have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole...
Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button.
They get blown up. Arabs,
got
Jewish
45 people
Israel,
in here.
Israel will be gone.
I need all 45 likes.
It happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different
Kelly and Pat, y'all right.
Terror, and they are spheres
Definitely need
of
a
terror,
strong person
horrible
in there
terror.
to
They
fix
had no
all
money.
this stuff that's
It was
going
a big
on.
story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation.
Salute to you,
and
Kelly.
now
I
what they're
appreciate you.
doing is they're taking that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen.
He will.
Let's go. Let's go, Trump. Let's go. That's right, guys. Y'all doing good. Y'all getting them likes up. Keep doing, keep going, keep going. Man, this dictator. She sounds more like a dictator than he does. I mean, he can.
And
The man has great
well
relationships.
that these dictators
That's what we
and
need,
autocrats
man.
are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery.
Get out of here, girl.
And that is
Get out
why
of here.
so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. Why? We understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it.
Trump don't waste no time
national
either.
security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid
nobody takes them serious.
A lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic.
And everybody's using them.
From the National
Everybody's
Constitution
using
Center
them.
right here in Philadelphia.
They're not strong. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, when you look at it, the reason why they can't seal these deals and make friends with these strong countries is because they weak. That's just what it is.
This PBS
we
News
saw for a fact
made possible by
when Trump was in office, he was all over the world, shaking hands with everybody and letting people know, look, this is not a game. This, you know, all these different things, bro. That's what he was doing, bro.
That's kind of our thing.
That's what he was doing. I'm gonna mute this for a second. But yeah, that's what he was doing, man. And people forget. They forget how hard he worked to put this country back on top. They forget that. They forget it, bro. I'm upset.
Heightened tensions.
You just have to choose a side. You automatically have to hate the other side.
Deep divisions.
It does get heated.
We have you say, fights. She's saying these people saying Trump is a disgrace, but what about most people in America?
Again. We
are right.
Not
Facts.
Going back.
Judy Woodruff brings together citizens from across the spectrum. Crossroads, a conversation with America.
She keeps
September
repeating
23rd
everything
at 9,
She
8
keeps
Central.
repeating everything over and over again because she's got nothing else. But see, to the untrained eye, though, it's going to sound like she's saying some good stuff.
On the News Hour tonight. The PBS News Hour, your source
crazy,
for news
man.
you can trust, asking tough questions.
But this is where we at, man.
Their votes if it means avoiding a government shutdown.
Well, right now,
this is where we at as a
in
country.
the hands of the Republicans in Congress to be able
And
to
it's
do
sad.
that.
Russia right now has you outmanned, outgunned. Is it time to think about negotiating?
Lloyd said, why do they have to make everything personal?
Who really want peace.
That's where we are.
As they unfold.
How long will Norfolk Southern maintain a president?
That's where we are as a country, man. Everything is personal. I mean, but you know what, though? I don't know if y'all saw the beginning, but the first part of the debate, Trump literally said nothing bad about her. She started with the low blows. So he said, if you want to get personal, let's get personal. But she knew he would respond to that, and that's when everything started going crazy, man. But yeah, it's crazy, man.
exploring political divides.
Have you tried to have a conversation with some of the folks who have a different view on these issues?
Kelly, you're exactly right. She's trying to go for the woke sheep,
issues across
the ones that think they're woke.
You've got larger groups, more people coming
And
across
she
the
just
border,
might
they'll
get them,
cross
but
it.
I still
What does
think
that
Trump
mean
got
for
a
you?
good strong run, though. That's just me, though.
Examining
This debate ain't gonna do
nationwide
nothing.
controversies.
How does
This
this
debate ain't gonna
election cycle
change
make you feel in
anything.
one word?
People know the truth.
Focusing
The majority
on
knows
issues
the
that
truth.
matter.
Studies show that young women are experiencing the highest rate of cancer
Lord,
diagnosis.
I feel the same
Addressing
way.
changes to our environment.
We literally knew nothing unless we did our own dig.
to see more dust.
And it's deeper than what we know now.
Yes.
There is arsenic and
But
heavy
Trump has
metals
been telling
in
us
the
about
lake
it
Committed
for the
to
longest.
arts and culture.
And that's why they've been trying to ban him, though.
And committed band out there.
They've been trying to ban him, and they got him knocked off Twitter. Think about all the things that happened since he's been out of office. Elon Musk bought Twitter. He did that to put Trump back in his rightful place so he can be heard. I mean, it got to click for some people. Dang, why did it take for Elon Musk to buy Twitter for Trump to be heard? Why? You got to ask those questions, man.
Of the most curious man in history.
For real. And y'all know it may be like a little delay. So as I'm talking to y'all, I see y'all comments like super early, and it might be like maybe like a 4 or 5 second delay of me responding. So if I respond slow, that's why.
Coming this fall.
It is a stunning and historic development.
This is a brand new presidential race.
Right, what you say, Pat? Right, even North and South Korea together, China. I didn't quite get that one. You might have to retype. You might have to retype. JJ brainwash, yeah, facts.
Perspective on events that
It's a lot of brainwashed people out here, man.
The Choice 2024.
Crazy, but
Tuesday,
we're gonna see how this ends, though. We're gonna see how this ends tonight.
On PBS.
I hope it's coming back. All of these ads. Yeah, I think we back, y'all. We back.
Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again.
What's up, Morning Star? I ain't seen you in a while, girl.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue
Teresa,
here.
you said checkmate.
Now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we from Vladimir Putin to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you,
you ain't got to do nothing but make a phone call, bro. Don't do it.
To win this
That's all you got to do.
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting with your
Teresa,
fake numbers.
No
Look,
problem. I was planning. I told you I was coming.
250 billion or
Got a
more.
lot going on, but I'm here.
Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are, they're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it.
They don't.
It's a war that's dying to be settled.
They know exactly what they want to do,
become
man.
President. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together.
Quick.
That war would have never happened.
Quick.
And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left.
Now ask her the same question.
He's gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building
Ask
up
her how
bridges,
she's planning on
after I
stopping
left,
this war.
I said, oh,
ask her.
He must be negotiating.
They don't have a
Must be good,
plan.
strong point
They
of
want to ask him
negotiation.
all the crazy
Well, it
questions,
wasn't,
though.
because
I'm out.
Biden
Look,
had no
I'm
idea
done
how to
with it.
talk to him.
I'm done
He
with
had
it.
no idea how to stop it, and now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David.
It will.
We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of
They're
the campaign
literally
like,
waiting on Trump to
Is he
win
our president?
before
We
they
have a
continue on with this
president,
war.
Mr.
He's
President,
already
he's
called him.
alive.
Bro, hold off.
It was
Let's just see how
a
everything
clarifying
goes.
question.
I'm telling you,
Do
bro,
you
he
believe
already
it's in the
did it.
U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war?
He
Yes or
done
no?
it
I think
already.
It's in the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take
Yes,
this to
man.
Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for
The
Ukraine
media,
in this
especially
moment,
these
but
people
also
hosting it,
as
Boston, the
Commander-in-Chief,
people that's
if
hosting it,
elected,
so
you
one-sided, bro.
Vladimir Putin,
Watch it.
And would it be
Just
any
watch.
different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's
What?
not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how we could defend
and
himself.
gave them all our
Days
money
later, I went to
too.
NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president. Understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last
Right.
hour.
Pat,
I wanted her to respond to
facts.
something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, would have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting.
Come on,
in
lady,
Moscow,
shut up.
much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war. They said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with
And she couldn't.
Zelensky and Putin. And she did.
And she
the
couldn't.
war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden.
She couldn't
I think he's the
negotiate.
worst
She knows
president in
nothing
the
about
history of
it.
our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate.
She goes
as soon
in
as
like a
they left
prosecutor,
Putin
and you
did
can't
the
do that
invasion.
President Trump,
on
thank
a
you.
massive
Bring up
level
something
like
you said she wanted to
vice
negotiate
president or
with Vladimir Putin.
president.
Vice
You
President
can't do
Harris,
that.
Have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow.
Why is she dodging the
And that's
question?
another one.
Why is she dodging the
I
question?
went to meet with President Zelensky. I've now met with him over 5 times.
No, They
The
said,
reality is
Putin.
it has been about standing as America always should.
See?
As a leader, upholding
Oh
international
my God, bro.
rules,
I hope people can see through this.
who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong
Y'all make sure y'all hit that like button.
Caring
Hit
about
that like button.
democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility.
Why does she sound like a commercial?
Ensuring that there
Why
is
does she sound like a fucking ad?
stand up for our principles and not sell them for the
God.
benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got
JJ, don't leave yet, man. Just stay a little while longer, bro. Stay a little while longer.
He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did.
She's so nervous.
And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that.
He knows she's lying. Look at the smile on Trump's face.
As of today,
there's
not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around
that's
the
funny.
world. The first time this
That's
century.
funny.
But let's understand
But I
how
agree,
we got
though.
to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and
I appreciate it, JJ. I appreciate it.
respected world leaders. And
But that's what negotiate. Everything doesn't have to end in a war, because if it was Biden, it would have ended in a war if they didn't do what he asked them to do. Sometimes you have to negotiate and say, hey, if you free some of my guys, we won't invade you. Okay, Trump is smart. He's like, okay, cool, but y'all better keep that promise, because if not, we coming for you. That's how you do it.
And demeaned members
Oh
of
my
our
gosh.
military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her.
He made a lot of deals, bro.
Thank you.
Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers.
Paranoid.
And I got involved with,
because Trump said earlier that they
because
were
the
forcing
Taliban
her to
was
say
doing the
that,
killing.
say
It's
the things she's
fighting
saying.
force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, They blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, 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 and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
And he's talking about the
these
Biden
people
administration.
did the worst withdrawal.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the most
They didn't follow
embarrassing
through
moment in the history
to
of our
keep
country.
peace.
And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president consistently over the course of his career attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys innocent, the Central Park 5.
What?
Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
He was young.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than
She
this.
can't even get her words together.
Someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to
is listening to an earpiece,
and
man.
the ambitions and the dreams of the American people.
She has an earpiece.
Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately.
And that was before he found out they forced.
We're not guilty.
They forced them to plead guilty.
That has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. Greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger, but they're destroying our economy.
I hope,
they have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad. You can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
A tax deduction?
Their ambitions,
that's not going to do anything.
Their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling.
Internet.
Thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
that's
you,
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
No,
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump,
president has
no.
said.
Come on, Internet. Let's go.
Move on, Vice
One
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today.
Come
And
on,
what I
come on,
said,
Trump.
that if
Stay
we
on
come
track
up
with this one.
something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous.
food
they
is
wouldn't
ridiculous.
vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system.
Oh, wow.
2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point.
See, they not even staying on. They not even addressing the questions,
my
bro.
position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John...
So scripted.
who you have
It's so scripted,
disparaged
bro.
as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company
You started
could deny
making this personal,
if a child
and it's
had
been
asthma,
personal ever
if someone was
since.
a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 in the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all. The value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass his
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made
of...
a mistake. Number one,
Man
John
ain't letting
McCain
them
fought
come in and say
Obamacare for 10
nothing.
years. But it wasn't only him.
He ain't letting them say
The
nothing.
Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that's important for a number of Americans, in particular young
Why they don't
voters,
do
and
her
that's
like this,
climate
though?
change. President Trump, with regard to the
Oh, my
environment, you say
gosh.
that we have to have clean air and clean water.
Give a damn about
Vice
no
President
climate
Harris,
change.
You call climate change an existential
All this
threat.
pollution out and
The question
inhaled.
to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very
Welcome
real.
to the
You
chat,
ask
Sky. I
anyone
didn't see you
who
there.
lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about
JJ, I
this issue.
appreciate you, man.
And I am proud that
I
as
salute
Vice
you for that
President
one,
over
bro.
the last 4 years,
I feel you,
we have
though. I
invested
feel
$1
you.
trillion in a clean energy economy, increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president.
This
We
is
have
crazy.
invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And
It's
I'm
like
also
they
proud
knew
to have the endorsement
she
of the
had
United
this
Auto
in the
Workers and
bucket.
Sean
That's the
Fain,
reason why they
who
presented
also
him with
know
that
part
question
of
and cut
building
him
a
off.
clean
That's so
energy
evil,
economy
bro. They
includes
evil,
investing
man.
in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened.
President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants.
that I
They
can
think
agree
they're gonna
with.
sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable.
Let's talk
But
about
we're not
China
gonna
buying
let that.
land
We'll
here.
put tariffs on those cars.
Let's talk
so
about
they can't
that.
come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business
Kelly, the
and
cheat sheet is in her
manufacturing
ear.
in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it.
See?
Between him and his
See?
son.
There we
They
go.
get all this money
Let's go,
from
Trump.
Ukraine.
Talk
They get
about
all
it,
this
man.
money from all of these
Talk
foreign
about it,
countries,
man.
And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is it?
'Cause they in
why
his
did he get
pockets.
$3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife?
He in their pockets, man.
Why did she pay him $3.5 million?
Let's go.
This is a crooked
Let's go.
administration.
They
and they're
already
selling
done
our
came out and
country
said
down
they
the tube.
received
President
27 million. The Biden family they received
Closing
$27
statements
million
from both of our
from
candidates. An
some
historic
foreign
night. This
people.
ABC
You
News
know they
presidential
is. Come
debate
on now,
From Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
bro. Y'all know it's crazy. It is crazy when they try to undermine what's really going on in this country by asking the questions that they know that she could probably win with. Man, all this stuff is set up, man. You just have to pay attention to what they're doing, bro. You have to pay attention to what they're doing, and what they're doing is they're setting it up to make it look like he's losing the debate, but in actuality, he's winning because he's saying he's addressing everything that we want to know about. You know, yeah, Lloyd, you're right. Facts. China has a bunch of land here, and they're still buying it up. And this is why, man, come on, bro. Why are we accepting so much money from them? And that's why Biden is sending so much money over there to Ukraine because he wants them in his pockets, so they can do what we tell them to do. And bro, it shouldn't even be like that. Everybody should be their own independent countries, making their own decisions, fighting their own wars or battles or whatever, man. So everybody can grow. Grow how they supposed to. And I'm talking about countries. But with the way that they've been running it now, man, it's like a selfish thing, like they're doing it for themselves, and we're paying for it. We paying for it. We, the people, are paying for it. And I'm tired of it, man. So sometimes you just have to look deeper than the surface. Sometimes you got to look deeper than the surface. And we've been looking at the surface for so long. Now it's time to look deep. Yeah, Trump may not be as articulate, and he may not use a lot of big words, and he may use billions and billions and hundreds of thousands. He may use that a lot. But if you read between the lines, he's saying something. You just got to be able to read it, and you have to want to. Because if you don't, then it's going to just sound like gibberish to you. Now, I know for a fact what she's saying is gibberish because she repeats everything she said before. She just switches the words up to make it sound different. But it's the same thing. But it's all a plan, y'all, to make him look bad. And just wait. Just wait until the news get hold of this and they start picking apart the debate, and they start making him look even worse. Watch. Y'all know how this is gonna go. If anybody that is on this stream right now are any kind of content creators, it is your duty and my duty to take clips that we know that's going to make him look good, and we post them and make him look good, because it's going to be Democrats out there to make her look good. And you got the media on their side. The media ain't on our side, y'all. So we got to pay attention to that. We got to pay attention to that, bro. They're trying to take him down. Kelly, that's facts, man. And that's what I fear, man. My kids, I have teenagers, 15 and 16-year-olds, man, that will soon be adults. And their America is going to look so much more different from how it did when we grew up. It's going to look so much different, man. I just hope they find a way to adapt and adjust to it. Because it's crazy, man. We can't let the Democrats continue to reign like this. We can't. We got to knock them out. They already had 3 years, and look at how much they done destroyed in 3 years. Imagine in another 4 or 5 years what's gonna happen, man. There may not even be a democracy. Man. Yeah, that's something to worry about, especially if you care about your children's future, man. But man, y'all let me know what y'all think so far, man, about this stream. I mean, about this debate, because I mean, I'm out of it, man. I gotta watch it through because I really want to know what happens, man. But I'm like JJ, bro. If it wasn't for me streaming, I would have been cut this off a long time ago. No, man, I appreciate you, JJ, and I appreciate everything you just said, bro. So, you know, and I'm going to always keep it 100, man. I may not say everything correct, but we back, and I ain't going to talk over the debate, all right? So we're going to get back to it.
Tonight, two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates
Lord,
us.
yeah, those are
And we can
facts. I hadn't
chart
even
a
checked
new way forward.
Twitter or TikTok.
A vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together.
She's just talking
that
right
is
now.
about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay?
Raymond, I agree with you,
And
man.
that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
Boom!
They've had 3.5 years
Boom!
to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs. And
People
all the things
forget
we
that
talked about.
she is in
Why
office right
hasn't she
now.
done it? She should leave right now, go down
Go down there and do
the
it.
White House, go to the Capitol.
Go
get
do
everyone
it.
together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. Ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just asked one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see
Trump
me.
got something up
They
his
call
sleeve.
me. We're laughed at all over
I'm
the world.
convinced.
They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader.
I'm
We don't have
convinced.
any idea what's going on. We
Boston,
have
well,
wars
facts,
going on
bro.
in the
This
Middle
is
East.
funny,
We have
but
wars going
he did
on
it though.
with Russia
He went
and
there.
Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history
There you go.
of our country.
He done holding back. He said, I'm done holding back.
That is our ABC News
He said, I am
presidential
done.
debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir.
It ended
Here in
too
the US,
soon, bro.
From all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
My God, bro.
And that is the end of the first presidential debate between these.
I gotta say, it was a trash ass debate. It really was. But you know, man, you know me. Y'all know I'm an independent. But I'm siding with Trump because I'm definitely not going with her, you know, because he asked all the questions that I've been asking. Because if you gonna do all those things, why haven't you done these things while you were in office? You're an actual vice president. Let's not forget that, all right? So yeah, it's all bullshit. Can I say bullshit on here? I'm on live. I should be able to say bullshit. But anyway, so y'all saw that. Y'all see how it went. It was a bull crap. And the only reason why I say it was a bull crap is because they didn't afford him the same questions to her that they did to him, and they tried to sabotage him. We saw that clearly, you know. And I think that it could have went very professionally if she didn't start going below the belt in the beginning. But she did. So it just went to hell from there because she knew he would respond to it, because that's how he get down. That's how he get down, man. So I mean, you know, it is what it is, man. Y'all saw it, man. And this is gonna be pre-recorded and it's gonna be posted on the channel, so y'all will be able to watch it again. I don't have nothing else to say, man. I'm speechless. I feel like he went out well, though. He went out well. He went out well because he asked the main question. If you're going to do all this shit you're talking about, why you ain't did it? You are president right now. Damn. I would have loved to see her reaction to that one. Damn. Y'all, this is my first stream. It's only going to get better from here. So y'all got to let me know how I did, man. Let me know how I did, because bro, look, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. But y'all, look, I'm signing up out of this thing, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have been wonderful. Y'all kept me company, man. I thought I was going to be alone the whole stream. Took y'all a minute to get here, man. Y'all better turn on them post notifications so y'all know when I'm going live, man. Y'all almost missed it. But, yeah, man, I'm going to get up out of this thing, man. And like I always say, do what you will with that information. I ain't gonna do it like the videos. But look, remember, y'all, challenge the argument and not the person. Y'all have a great night. I'm up out of this thing. Love all y'all, man. Y'all be good. Salute.